Hi, I'm Amber. Welcome to the MeatRx Success Story podcast. Today we're with Hana, and she's going to tell us about her success story with a meat-based diet. Hi, Hana.
Hey, aloha. Yeah, so I've struggled a lot with my own addictions to carbs and mental health, bipolar, depression, a lot of common stories to a lot of us. But I'm also a naturopathic physician, so I see a lot of things as well, and I've been implementing the carnivore diet with myself and patients, and just been amazed and following the whole movement. And it's burgeoning it's a fascinating from a clinical perspective to watch all these things. I feel like honestly we've been half-assing a little bit in the functional medicine naturopathic world, like, oh, I'll give you this autoimmune protocol and this complex FODMAPs and Weston price, but I just don't think we've been going far enough for a certain amount of people. And I was amazed to give you a little background, I came from pretty macrobiotic upbringing. So a lot of vegetable, a little bit of meat, but not enough. I would scrounge it as I could at a friend's house and here and there, but organic, but definitely a lot of wheat. And I have that just sort of subtle neurologic reaction to wheat. So I spent most of high school mildly depressed and tired, and kind of got into the compulsive overeating in high school. I was always like a foodie. So sort of like a wine enthusiast. They're like, I like fancy wine. It's like, no, you're an alcoholic. It's like, if you're a foodie, it's like, maybe you're just a food addict, right? Definitely in college, it got really bad with it's probably about 30 pounds over this. I think I'm like 145, 150 now, kind of hovering there, and was like up to my most was like 178. And so not crazy obese, but definitely uncomfortable, and would at my worst, eat 10,000 calories of bags of Oreos and coffee shop to coffee shop, just make yourself sick. I never did the bulimia. That's in my family, but I'm glad I wasn't good at throwing up. It's like, it kind of protects you. Plus I learned from my mom, and just kind of like, no, I'm not going to go there. But it's pretty brutal, because the compulsive overeating, I think it's an under-recognized eating disorder. And it's really carb addiction, and it's food addiction to a deep level, and, emotional components and all sorts of things to that. So, but I don't think the addiction part is really, everyone wants to talk about, more touch and what are your emotions? What are you really trying to feed? But it's like, well, if you're an addict, you're just trying to get that next hit too, right? So and I learned in high school, it really helped me in college rather, really helped me to start to go gluten-free, low carb. I kind of found Atkins at that point, was able to drop most of my weight and get a handle on it, but and then from there went to Weston Price, kind of went deep in that deep nutritional study and paleo, and in med school kind of was really on that deep animal-based nutrition thing, but there was always some carbs on board, some fruit, and I did keto about maybe 4 years ago, where I started to really kind of play with the bulletproof coffee and really just get those carbs down. But I still would have that carb creep that a lot of us in the keto world having, where you eat a little bit of that erythritol and the stevia and then the fruit, and the next thing you know, you're just like, you're far, far progressed. And it was never nearly as bad as when I was eating processed food, but still, binging on 10 dragon fruit, don't tell me that's normal, or, so it. And I was prejudiced against the carnivore diet for a while, just in especially naturopathic world, where just vegetables are gods. So to even not do your salad with your meat, I never cared much for vegetables. I honestly thought they were a waste of time, because they take all this energy, they rot in your fridge. There's no calories. So a lot of times I would feel guilty for not eating them, but now I'm like, I just got rid of the guilt, and it's pretty good. But so that's a rambling story, but that's kind of the story of just a lot of us, right? That slow progression of food addiction, the paleo to keto to, all right, I'm just going to ditch the plants and keep the plants as my drugs from coffee and some spices, but I take it or leave it, right? And So that's where I'm at right now.
Very cool. That is very similar to many people that I've heard their stories about. It does seem to kind of, the road seems to lead to carnivore if you stick within this community,
Road,
the low
yeah.
carb community. It's very interesting, but I see that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I did it, so there you go. Okay, so
Yeah.
when you first started carnivore, give me an idea of how you implemented the diet. Like, what were you eating?
Mm-hmm.
How many times a day were you eating? Did you fast? Did you include
Mm-hmm.
dairy? And did you have any transitional issues? And anything else you want to add in there?
Right. So it's pretty animal-based keto, but I went fully carnivore. I was breastfeeding at 7 months when I started. So it was about it's coming up on 2 years, but, so I was a little afraid of going full carnivore for some reason. I thought you needed carbs to breastfeed, which I don't think you do. I don't think we quite understand completely, but, I was fine breastfeeding. My milk production didn't go down at all. I went strict. At first I went like no dairy. I think I still had a little butter in there. And I was drinking a little wine still at that point. So I would have, that first month I didn't have any red wine, but first about 6 months, there was dairy. I wasn't fasting at that point. I was breastfeeding. So a lot of beef, it just that same sort of, it just sticks with you. And I tried to do the whole raw thing for a while, just trying to, you go down that whole rabbit, like maybe this is the whole juju here. So I kind of gag on it a little. I try to eat as much raw as I can, as rare as I can, but I have to say I love a smoked brisket or just that sear on it. And I don't really notice much difference on that. So to each their own on that. And then I kicked the last year, I haven't had any alcohol. And I do think it was kind of evident that when I stopped the carbs, I'm like, okay, I'm not eating carbs, but why am I still drinking wine? Like it wasn't obscene, but it was just like, why? It kind of points out the little bits of carbohydrate and relationships with things. I think that's a common story as well, as it sort of points out when you have addictions, you have addictions to lots of things. So you kind of have to address them all at the same time. So that's been nice. I haven't, the alcohol, it definitely just my anxiety and mood lifted when I lifted that as well. But just getting in that deep ketosis of carnivore, I didn't have any digestive transitions. I don't eat a lot of rendered fat. That's a common one. It just kind of hits that stomach with a little nausea, but, I didn't have too many issues. I really can't say I had much although I was surprised at how much better I felt when I was so low carb. I was just like, what? How is just like getting rid of that little bit of fruit and low carb? It kind of amazed me. So that was good. I think also though, like some of us that are a little more addiction based, it's easier to be abstinent, just like alcohol. So when you're carb abstinent, there's less of a carb creep. And so carnivore is the only thing I've seen where it's really abstinent. Because you can think you're doing keto pretty well, and then you look back, you're like, well, but then you ate that whole Lily's chocolate bar, and then like, come on, let's be honest here. Like, so yeah, so that, and then in the last, when I stopped breastfeeding, I was been wanting to fast because, it's all the rage and it'd be fun, but I was breastfeeding, so you're not going to do that then. And then I hit the fasting earlier this year, and it was fun to kind of, play with some OMAD and some 38s and alternate day. And it dropped me a size, and the extra energy of just those days of fasting and the mental and spiritual clarity of fasting has been really amazing. COVID hit, and I was like, oh, I'm hoarding food. I'm not fasting. Let's get as much food in my cupboards as possible. But then a couple months ago, I hit it again, and it's been nice. It's interesting fasting. Like as women, I think it's a very delicate thing hormonally. And some people with mental health concerns, I think they just, it screws them up, right? And they say eating disorders, you really shouldn't probably fast. But I think compulsive overeaters, actually fasting is pretty powerful because you're so used to being addicted to food that as long as you're refeeding with a really nutrient dense feast and you're not doing this sort of long drawn out vegan starvation or juice fat, as long as you're refeeding well and your time windows fit your needs. I love fasting. I'm a huge fan. Saves you money, saves you everything. And then you can indulge too, because I'm someone like, I just had a birthday this past weekend and I cooked for a bunch of friends, and I did indulge, and I made some like lemon curd mousse with maple syrup, and I had some bites and this and that. And, I felt fine. I don't feel as good as I do when I'm perfect, but we all have to figure out our line of how we live this life, and how perfect we are, or how perfect we need to be. So unfortunately, I'm not that canary in the coal mine where, like the Michaela, I ate one little piece of some, I don't even know, and I'm just destroyed for a month. Like, I don't have that. But then you get in this habit, like, oh, I can eat an apple every day. And then you're like, wait, your mood is awful. So what are you doing? Be strict. So that's been my story with that.
Well, that's that is such a a very common story as well. And what it boils down, as far as I'm concerned, is we all have to figure out what works for us. Some people can get away with a lot more, and some people can't. There are people, like you said, like Michaela Peterson, she can't. So
right.
Makes total sense. So now we get to the good part. You kind of talked about how you felt when you weren't eating all meat-based. So now let's talk about how you feel now. What has changed? What's improved?
So the mood stuff, I still would dip into, I have, more of the Amber Hearn bipolar 2, sort of atypical seasonal affective disorder type of brain where, very circadian light sensitive, and kind of hit that your brain slows and you just want to eat a lot. And I think that one, it's a little different from bipolar 2. Like, I think that carnivore diet should be just like the first treatment for atypical depression, bipolar, like it should be a first line, but that and exercise and the sun and all the other good things. But, it just took the cyclothymia, it took the ups and downs, definitely just that low level dysthymia. And it's just steady, like that brain, that your neurons are running at a steadier level. My productivity, my ability to concentrate, to deal with all the things, being a mom and work, and just my kind of like waking up with some energy and some motivation to show up. That's really been better. My ADD is better with more protein, more focus, more fat-based. My ability to fast, my ability to go without eating and not get that whole hypoglycemia roller coaster. And, going down a size is nice. Like having a better body composition, going from like a size 10 to a size 8, like, and then fasting's taking me down to like maybe a 6. If, there's always the range, but that when you're kind of getting down to like those last 10, 15 pounds, that's kind of a hard one to push and to get your set point down. And so carnivore is a really nice one there. And I have to study the dairy because I do think that I'm better. I try to just not eat dairy, but a little goat kefir will come in, or cheese here and there, like I indulged this weekend. But I just think in terms of your weight, in terms of dairy is just suspect, and we're probably all better off if we're going to do it, just doing a little ghee or something, like just taking the casein out. But it's also a superfood, and some people have no trouble. Like I have a friend with ulcerative colitis, and he, carnivore works great for him, and I would think like dairy would mess him up, but he can do dairy fine, right? So but I mean, the question becomes, would he be better without it? That he probably would, but what can we get away with? So I do think the dairy question, we should all eliminate it for a while and then see what we can play with. But it definitely there's a couple pounds there when you drop the dairy for sure. Like no matter what, it's just too easy to like to go for it. And then how much fat and how much protein can be good to lean out with a little less fat. But I think the higher fat ratios in terms of getting in that deep ketosis and mental health and satiety is important. So I don't know that I'm full PKD ratio, that like high fat, but I'm not like super high protein, like lower Ted Naiman kind of, I think we should cycle in and out of things as we need to. But I also think that like if you really need to lose weight, you don't necessarily need to be completely carnivore. You could go a fasting route as long as you're having animal-based nutrition, and fasting lets you get away with more. So like after a long fast, I can have a little carbs, or I can have a little metabolic flexibility. Is my mental health is good with it? Probably not. But so yeah, I love the salt and electrolytes and broth and that, but I'm a kind of a dandelion. I'm pretty like sturdy. So I'm not like one of those like, oh my God, I ate this thing and it destroyed me, but it'll catch up to me if I'm not on it.
Yep, it always does. You can think that, oh, it doesn't really bother me, but at some point it probably will. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's for sure. Well, you have been a MeatRx member for some time now. Can you kind of tell us what benefit do you see by being a member? What is some of the things that you find are very important that you have found?
Well, more like I like to support it more of just just support Dr. Baker and Masa and the whole community. And I think it's we have to kind of decentralize from the technocracy of they're coming down on meat. It's just like ridiculous too. So we need to have ways to push the science forward, the community, the coaching, the whole thing. So yeah, I was talking to you earlier. I want to be more involved, but just life is so crazy and I'm a little zoomed out and a little, everything's gone on Zooms. I'm a little like, I think if I was not a clinician and like new to this, and I needed more community, I think I think it would be a perfect fit. So I don't know that I've used it that much, but as a referral for patients, for the coaching, and as the testimonials and just these sorts of interviews are very powerful. I'll link them in treatment plans and do that sort of thing. Cause it's like, you can talk all day about science, but say you give someone like Brett Lloyd's story or something, and you're just like, okay, like that's pretty powerful, or Michaela's story, or these, and so and I can't say I have a lot of, some patients have gone carnivore and it's pretty amazing, but usually that's a little far for most people. So I just try to plant the seed though, that's a actual valid way to go. I think people don't even think that, it doesn't even really occur to them. So, but yeah, I just love what you guys are doing and pushing it forward. And so, yeah, I'd love to become more involved, and I'd love to do, I don't know if we're ever going to come together in groups anymore, but that sort of like, I think it's in the future of retreats and kind of coming together in person and, in a kind of decentralized, teaching each other that biohacking, carnivore, just that whole world. I got to go to KetoCon. I'm all the way out here in the beautiful island, so it's hard for me to just bop over for things. But yeah, I don't know. With COVID, we're online. I guess that's where we are.
Yeah, but let's hope for 2021. Maybe we can all get together for KetoCon and have us a big old MeatRx party or something.
I think so.
Go get some barbecue.
Yeah, there's a real, there's a sweet community. And I mean, in a sense, it's kind of simple. It's like, okay, just eat meat. Like what's so evocative of this? But it's so life-changing. People's brains turn on. Like it's pretty magical. And you can also see how it would just change the world too, to just really all sink into regenerative agriculture and supporting each other and species appropriate nutrition. And you won't need people like me, like expensive naturopathic functional doctors pushing supplements and IVs. It was just like, eat meat and get in the sun and we'll be fine kind of thing. So that's what I aim for, to make me obsolete.
I like that. Wow.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
pretty powerful.
I'll still inject you with some stem cells and ozone, and I'll find ways to, stay relevant. But I just feel like, honestly, healthcare is a big racket, and even the alternative healthcare world. So it's just like, we're trained to, okay, take this supplement and this, and it's not a pharmaceutical, but it's just, it almost disgusts me, honestly, the whole healthcare industry, all sides of it.
Yep, I have to agree with you. I'm pretty disgusted
Yeah.
too. That's why I do what I do. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on and talking about your
Mm-hmm.
story, Hana. It's been fun, and
Mm-hmm.
I just can't say enough how important these stories are for people
Yeah.
to see success, and
Mm-hmm.
that they might have a way of making some improvements in their life, if nothing else is
Mm-hmm.
working, especially. So again,
Totally.
thank you so much.
Thank you. It's lovely.
Bye, Hana.
Aloha. Bye.